Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We have with us today Knox Williams, from the American Suppressor Association. I have known Knox for what? Just short of a decade, or no, over that.
A little more, yeah.
All right, you first came on the scene here in Iowa, right here, boots on the ground, what, 2014 or 13? I don't remember.
Man, honestly, the years kind of all run together. I want to say that our first time stepping foot in Iowa was 2012 or 13 to try and start that push that we really hit the ground running on in 2014.
All right. So for anybody who's not paying attention to what's going on, we're talking specifically about suppressors. Iowa was one of a handful of states in the nation that didn't have a provision for that in any way. And there were many states that didn't have a provision for hunting. And then at that time, it was what? American Silencer Association. You rebadged to American Suppressor Association.
That's
came
right.
on the scene and provided us with help, giving the legislators a range day and chance to handle these things and see for themselves that they're not hitman apparel and not Hollywood stuff, but they do help your hearing. And you know, I never even thought about this till I got you on just now, Knox, and then I'll hush so you can do your thing. But I had on, oh golly, what was his name? Dr. Timothy Wheeler last week, who was talking about or had written an article that came out in the NRA publications about why are we criminalizing hearing, or I can't exactly remember what it was, but why do we ban hearing health type of thing? You know what I mean? And him and a group of doctors had come along and said, this is stupid. This is basic stuff that you should be doing. Why are you continuing to ban things that help your health? So with that, walk us through, if you're willing, what we did here in Iowa and where has that led to where you are now and all the things that ASA is touching.
Yeah, Iowa was really a fun case for us, right? We started working with IFC back in 2013, 2014. And it took us 3 years, 3 sessions to get legislation across the finish line. It's a much different place in Des Moines, I'm sure now, than it was back then. But back then, Democrats had control of at least the Senate at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fighting very much an uphill battle. I think that our partnership, the ASA and the IFC and the NRA kind of triangle, all coming together to work on this common sense legislation to legalize suppressor ownership and their use in the field by hunters within the state of Iowa. I mean, it really all came together. It was kind of a match made in heaven working with y'all. We had a tremendous amount of fun doing it. And like you said, getting legislators and thought leaders out to the range to actually hear what suppressors can do and to dispel some of the myths and misconceptions that surround them. Really, we fight this battle with facts. And that, I think, is what ultimately led us to victory in, I think, 2016, when we finally got it across the finish line.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you. I know that we had thank yous at the time. I know we've had thank yous since then, but seriously, thank you. I know that you guys did a lot of work, and you are so right. When you get people out to the range and they actually experience what the things that we're discussing actually do and what they don't do, you come away with things that you absolutely can't deny. You end up with self-evident truth. And with the ASA's willingness to come on scene and walk people through that hand in hand, it made all the difference in the world. So thank you very much for that. We're still appreciative to this day. So ASA is not a small organization. They are not a small player. So tell us where you're at now, at least on the national stage, and what we have going through with the Hearing Protection Act. And I should mention that I did run real quick and find out what Dr. Wheeler was, his catchphrase, which is smart. I can't believe I forgot it, but it's protecting your hearing shouldn't be a crime.
Yeah,
that's so true. I mean, he's so right. It's that simple. So I needed to go get that plug in there. You're welcome to use it, I'm sure. Go ahead.
No, I love it. And he's absolutely right. There's no reason that you should have to pay a tax or wait to be able to, A, exercise your Second Amendment constitutionally protected right, and B, to protect your hearing while you're doing it. It would be ridiculous if they were to say, hey, there's a potential wait and a tax to put a muffler on your car, or to reduce any other noise that can instantly create noise-induced hearing loss and other permanent hearing damages. Suppressors are the only thing that can really muffle the noise of a gunshot at the source. They're one of the most effective ways to combat noise-induced hearing loss and tinnitus, which is ringing in your ears. Yeah. And they should be commonplace. You know, if you're a law-abiding citizen and you can own a gun, you should be able to purchase a suppressor for that host firearm as well. And, you know, the folks that are standing in the way are really, you know, using deceit to their advantage and using misconceptions and trying to sow doubt and you know, perpetuate, you know, misinformation, for lack of a better term.
Oh, yeah. So Hearing Protection Act, what's the number, where are we at, and what do you need?
Yeah, so HPA has been reintroduced in the House this year by Representative Ben Cline out of Virginia. So I think we're sitting around 60 or so co-sponsors on that legislation. You know, really, we need people to contact their members and say, hey, look, Hearing Protection Act is good common sense legislation. Again, you shouldn't have to pay a tax. You shouldn't have to register your firearm with the federal government. You shouldn't have to submit fingerprints and go through all the hoops and hurdles to protect your hearing while exercising your Second Amendment rights. On the Senate side, it got reintroduced by Senator Crapo out of Idaho. This is, I believe, the 5th time that he's introduced this legislation. So we're picking up more and more steam every session. Again, this is a long-term play for us, right? You know, yes, the Republicans have the House. Yes, they have the Senate. And yes, we obviously have Trump in the White House. But we still have a lot of work to do in terms of normalizing the acceptance of suppressors and making sure that our elected officials in Washington, D.C. understand the importance of suppressors at the national level. And the best way to fill them in and educate them on that is by contacting them and saying, hey, I'm a constituent and this is something that we support.
Is it okay if I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Where are the Iowa House reps and senators on this? Do you have them as co-sponsors, or what have you heard from there? Do you know?
Give me 1 second and I will tell you.
Okay, this wouldn't be hard for me to load up to X and tag them in so that we can get a few more people on board if we need to. And by all means, have Iowans let these people know these are the expectations we have. ASA is who's working on this. Contact them.
I could be missing this, but I don't believe that there's a single member of the Iowa delegation that is co-sponsoring in either the Senate. So that would be low-hanging fruit.
Well, okay, that's what we'll do. We'll tag some of these folks and see if we can get you a little bit more support, and they should be doing this. Some of these people, gosh, I lose track. I mean, I know that we're junkies in this, Knox, but I'm pretty sure that Ashley Henson was in the House at that time, and I think I don't remember if Joni Ernst was in the Senate at that time or not.
I think she was lieutenant governor at that time.
Branstad
signed it, and I believe Joni and Branstad both came out to the event in Grinnell for the bill signing.
No, you're thinking of Kim Reynolds.
I am thinking of Kim Reynolds. I sure am. Yep.
Yeah. But there might be another. We might have another U.S. House rep or two that were actually in the state House or Senate at the time. I lose track of that. But so it isn't a stretch since they've worked with these things before to do it again, obviously. So let's work on that. And that's something that Iowans can help with and IFC can help with. So we've got a piece of legislation. And, you know, I mentioned earlier that you and I are junkies. We read the bills and we go through and we nitpick them and tear them apart. Many people watching this do not. So let them know what the Hearing Protection Act is. Are we declassifying them from the NFA? Or are we saying they're on there but no $200 stamp? What are we saying here?
So the Hearing Protection Act was something that we helped draft back in 2015 the first time. It's changed a little bit, but really technical changes. But at its core, what the HPA is doing is removing suppressors from the purview of the National Firearms Act. And that means no more NFRTR, which is the Federal Registry, no more $200 tax stamp, no more fingerprint and passport photo requirement, no more CLEO notification, which is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer notification. Yeah. So currently when you purchase an NFA item, you have to notify, you know, a local sheriff, chief of police, or state AG that you've done so. So it'd be getting rid of all of that. And it would basically be treating suppressors like a Title I firearm. So like a rifle, pistol, or shotgun, where you go to your dealer, you fill out your 4473, you pass your NICS background check, and you can walk right out with it. That's the end state that we're hoping to get to. Obviously, you know, this is something where, you know, again, there is no justification for the an unbelievable amount of regulations surrounding suppressors. It just doesn't justify itself. This was passed in 1934. Suppressors were, interestingly, the only part of the National Firearms Act that wasn't really debated. There's a lot of talk about machine guns. There's even some talk about short-barrel rifles and short-barreled shotguns. Pistols were actually included in the first draft of the National Firearms Act. Thankfully, those got removed, but due to kind of some sloppy legislative drafting, that's why you still have the restrictions on short-barrel rifles and shotguns, which, if you think about it, doesn't make any sense when you can have a pistol, you can have a rifle, but you can't have a medium-sized gun in between them, right? It makes no sense.
It's as dumb as it is stupid. You don't have to tell me, but we still should say it. Yes.
Yeah. It's an antiquated law. It's one that needs to get, obviously we would love to see the whole thing get taken back. But for us right now, we're trying to take one bite of the apple. And that bite is getting suppressors out.
Fantastic. Okay. So I don't, that you're not on a gotcha interview. I'm not trying to rat hole you into something you're not willing to talk about or not able, but do you have any kind of indication on what things may look like or what you may need in order to facilitate an outcome?
I wish that I could look into kind of my congressional crystal ball, the magic 8 ball, and shake it and say, hey, what's going to happen? I don't know. What I will say is, this is something that we've been working on for a decade at this point. Obviously we're pushing to try and get this done as soon as possible, but we're also not holding our breath that it's going to happen in this particular Congress. But again, the more members that we educate, the more people that we get on our side, the easier a lift it becomes. Our hope is that we can see some significant movement in the short term on this.
Well, with everything that we do, it ends up being the same thing that we need universally. We need the engagement from the people watching this.
Absolutely.
Whether this be the legislators that we're asking to sponsor and co-sponsor things, or whether we're talking about Joe Blow American that we need as advocates. If the people watching this are going to sit back and put their feet up on the coffee table, then this isn't going to work.
Yep.
So, but what's interesting is I think that we've done a good job as advocacy groups, making it much easier and quicker and more streamlined for advocates to use their voice. So if people go to the American Suppressor Association.com, what kind of tools do you have for them?
Yes, we've got some legislative contact stuff. Obviously, we have general education if you want to learn about suppressors, kind of dispel some of the myths for yourself. The best thing to do is go to a range and hear a suppressor gunshot.
Oh, yeah.
With a gun. If you can't do that, check out our website. We also have hearingprotectionact.com. That's got specific information on both the House and the Senate versions of the Hearing Protection Act, both of which are identical.
Fantastic.
And that's got a contact form. You can put in your information and email. It will email your elected officials directly, both senators and your member of the House, if you just put in your name and address in a valid email.
Fantastic. Here's something that I'm quite willing to extend. If you end up talking with any of the Iowa delegation in any way, or have any contact with them, and they need to handle some of these things and the logistics or whatever don't work when they're out in the DC neighborhood, I promise you that when they're here in Iowa, we'll set it up. We'll make it work. If that will help them, Knox, then let them know. Contact IFC. We will make arrangements for you to try these things on. We'll come to you. You come to us, whatever else. But if they need to handle them in order to push them over the finish line, which I don't think will be that hard, then by all means, we'll help in any way that we can there. So, and then that's it. That actually goes for Joe Blow. The other thing that we have here, not only in needing advocates, is there's a whole bunch of people watching this that don't care about suppressors. They don't care about, well, I don't, that really isn't me, or I never saw myself as owning one before. So, this is nice, guys. I wish you the best, but I just don't care about this. We need those people who are saying that this doesn't truly affect me to understand, A, it does affect you, and B, the only way that we're going to get somewhere and get these things done across the board is for everybody to pitch in. So if we've got a whole bunch of duck hunters or turkey hunters watching this and say, I don't care about that, well, it's probably because you haven't used a suppressor on your shotgun yet. If you had, you might care more about this, but we need your help just like you need it from us when we're thinking about issues that we may not be that engaged in. I think that that's one of the fundamental problems that I see in the Second Amendment realm. We seem to have these little pockets of advocacy, so to speak, but we don't cross over as much as we had ought to. So I think this is a call to action across the board. And I think that this is a really, really good use of people's time and energy. So I don't know if that'll help, Knox, but I run into that problem a lot. I don't know if you see it as much.
And we see it all the time. And I love the way that you put that. We are all in this together, right? It's the same fight for the Second Amendment. And the more that we can row in the same direction, the more successful we will all be.
Agreed. Okay, so you have a lot of touches with ATF. Do they have you remember what's the crappy Adam Sandler movie where he's got his little hit list of people and then they make a joke out or whatever else? I can't remember which one. Maybe.
That was Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, okay. Yes, okay. So can I assume that you're on the ATF hit list or not? I know I am.
Right, like I'd like to think not, but look, at the end of the day, we are an association that represents the industry and consumers, so we have to be on good terms with ATF. And the folks over at the NFA division, believe it or not, have earned a lot of our respect over the past 2 years.
Okay,
they have done a tremendous job within the confines of what they can work with, streamlining the NFA transfer process. Now, it is still light years away from where it should be, but we got to give credit where credit's due. And these guys, several among them, have really stood up in a big way to help make it so that you no longer have to wait, 6 to 18 months to get a suppressor. Now you're talking about waiting sometimes same day, but on average, I want to say, 2 to 3 weeks on average, a median time around 1 to 2 weeks for them, right? So it's a tremendous departure from where it was even a year and a half ago. And that's a testament to the job that they've been able to do and the job they're being receptive to us coming in, making recommendations and pushing for good policy and good, actions out of the agency, So I think that, we're going to call these guys out for all the bad that they do. And there's a lot of it. We also need to be willing to call out the good that they do too. And this is one of those instances where they've really stepped up.
I have seen change. In full disclosure, I have an FFL with an SOT. I do sell suppressors, and I do a lot of that, or I do all the paperwork for that here in the shop. And it has changed quite a little bit. It's not nearly what I wish that it could be. I mean, as a fundamentalist, I think that you ought to be handed a suppressor when you graduate high school. I mean, maybe even more than that. But I don't want to absolutely go completely radical on the video. But what I'm saying is I don't have any problem with anybody owning them for any or no reason. I think they ought to be able to buy them in the grocery store, probably like you do when you go to Scandinavian countries and you fly in there and you're like, well, I want to hunt elk and I've got all this stuff lined up, and they're like, well, we won't sell you a hunting tag unless you have a can. Yeah. Oh. So the United States are way behind the curve on things like that. But just for everybody's edification out there watching, as a dealer, I log into ATF's, let's call it a portal. I log in there and I basically, it's a little antiquated. In fact, it's very antiquated, but it's essentially a longer version of dropping and dragging inventory. So I'll take my inventory by serial number, and if I would need to transfer it to another dealer, then I'll essentially drop it and drag it over there and let it go and hit the submit button. It waves to an examiner, hey, we've got one that needs a look. They go in and make sure everything's okay. Done. And the reason why is because I'm a dealer that has my portal and my profile up to speed, and the taxes paid and all that other stuff, it's done. So is the dealer that I'm transferring it to. I have long said that they should be able to make corporations, trusts, or individuals capable of the same profile. There's no reason, Knox, for you and I to put all these things in there and fingerprints, whatever else, and it's only good for one time. Put it in there, organize that profile so I can drop and drag into an individual trust or corporation, and that will suffice for the time being until they, like you're working towards, these things are no longer categorized as some, hitman muffler. I mean, it's as dumb as it is stupid. But in the meantime, I'm glad to see you guys make some headway to make what we are doing a little more palatable. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is what we do. And I think that one of the neat opportunities that we have right now you look at kind of one of President Trump's themes for the beginning of the second administration, it is eliminating government inefficiency. And the NFA transfer process is one of the most grossly inefficient, antiquated systems that the government has. Granted, there's a lot of them. I keep hearing about, the mine in Pennsylvania that's, a few hundred feet below a mountain where they hand process all of the government retirement benefits, which is just like, oh my goodness, I thought we had it bad. Turns out there's even worse. But nonetheless, it makes this, right for them to come in and try and fix. And we've done, I think, a good job of presenting this to the administration, to the folks at the White House, trying to get it in front of the folks at DOJ to take a look at and flag and say, hey, look, this is something that the federal government should step in on, should help fix. And at the end of the day, look, it's going to take an act of Congress to remove suppressors from the National Firearms Act or to dismantle the National Firearms Act on its own. So that's something only Congress can do. But the federal government can step in and make it much easier, much faster. And that's what we're asking you to do. And we're not going to stop until you can walk into a store, pay your tax, pass your background check, and walk right out with it. There's no reason that there should be any delay.
I agree 100%. I had a customer that bought, I don't remember how many, a lot of cans on a trust. He turned them all in the same day. It was all done. And then I can't remember, all of them but 2 came back very quickly. And the other 2 strung out for like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
So why is it that the same guy with the same trust with sequential serial numbers has 2 cherry picked out of there that last for forever? So in an effort, have you got time for a quick story? Because I'll tell you. Okay. In an effort to track this down, because he was also a friend of mine and I felt kind of bad, I just started calling ATF and I went down through and chased every one of the little number prompts that you could, trying to find somebody for some reason and telling them my woes. And I finally found a boss of a boss contractor or something like that walked me through how this works. And he said, do you really know what's happening here? I'm like, well, of course I don't, or I wouldn't be on the phone angry. Why don't you help me? And he's like, well, when an examiner decides that these things need further review, and he said, and that could be for lots of different reasons, or some you can't even imagine. He said, they set it over here aside physically. And I, what do you mean physically? He said, well, it's in paper form. He says, not even electronic, it's paper form. I'm like, really? And he said, yes, at that stage it is. And he said, and they categorize it all and they put it in an envelope and they seal it up. And he said, and they stick it in a pile. And he said, and this is what he told me. I wasn't there. I didn't see it myself. Okay. But he said, when that pile gets big enough to warrant a half pallet or whatever, and then what they call, a hot shot, where they put it in a single vehicle or a van or whatever to shuttle it somewhere. When the pile gets big enough to justify that, they send it to FBI for further review. And then FBI says, well, we're running background checks on everybody from, this guy wants to be a senator to this guy needs a clearance. And this guy is trying to get checked to make sure that they can, work at a daycare. You're getting in line with everybody else. And then they work their end through. And when they find out what they do or don't need, then they send it back to ATF and it supposedly goes back on the bottom of the pile. Well, there's no reason that it is being done this stupidly, number one. And this does explain why some of these times are absolutely insane. It's starting over at the bottom with all these different people that touch it. Now, I haven't actually held these applications all the way through because I'm not able. But if this is truly what's happening, DOJ should be all over this like stink on a monkey. This is as inefficient and dumb as you can possibly imagine.
Absolutely. And the interesting part is you ask 10 examiners or 10 folks at ATF, hey, walk me through the exact process. You're going to get 10 different answers. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's not a lot of clarity on it. Now, granted, it has cleaned up a lot since Ben Hiller came in as acting director, division chief for the NFA division. Okay. And now Stephen Albro is in that position. So they've done a good job of cleaning that up. But yeah, you've got a couple different things. At the end of the day, people think that a background check for an NFA item is something super special, right? I gave them fingerprints and photos, so it must be top secret level stuff. It's not. It's the exact same background check as on a rifle, pistol, or shotgun. It's just a normal NICS check that the FBI runs. So the ATF doesn't even have a hand in running the background check. That is all FBI. What ATF does have a hand in, and something that we've been pushing them hard on for years, it's look, guys, it is so silly that if I want to buy 2 suppressors at the same time, I have to submit 2 separate applications. And what probably happened to your friend is when they submitted their applications, those get entered, and it might just be a 5-minute difference because you have to start over and re-enter all your information, which opens up another opportunity for data entry errors, which is one of the most common reasons for delays outside of the actual NICS check. But so ATF is receiving these spaced apart a little bit. Well, you also have, potentially thousands of other people purchasing suppressors in that same day. So you've got a lot of forms getting flooded in, so they get split up. And when those forms go to different examiners, say you submit 4 applications, you could have as many as 4 different examiners seeing your applications, which is ridiculous. They should all be centralized and bundled into one. And ATF has taken some measures to bundle them, but now that they're going faster, there's a lot less incentive to do it. What needs to happen is you need to be able to submit simultaneously on the same exact application. Because if you hit any sort of a delayed status, so with NICS, you can either get auto-approved, which is about 70%, or delayed, which means that hey, we are not quite sure if you're a prohibited person or not. It could be something as simple as oh, well, you're Michael Ware in Iowa. You have no criminal record, but there's another Michael Ware in, Florida that does have one. So we just need to take some measures to make sure that you're not the bad guy, right? It could take, a half of a second, but with NFA NICS checks, you don't have the same Brady Act shot clock that you do with a Title I gun. And what I mean when I say that is when they stood up the federal background check with the FBI, the legislation that did that included a provision that said if you don't approve that application within 3 business days of submission, then the sale can proceed. It's at the discretion of the dealer. They know for NFA items that the sale will not proceed until they approve it. So there's no incentive for them to clear it quickly, which means that they can often sit on them for weeks or months at a time. So if you are purchasing a suppressor right now and you've hit a delay and it's taken you a few months, probably your NICS check just got stuck in that queue where the FBI is putting it in a pile, setting it aside and saying, we'll get to it whenever we feel like it, instead of a normal NICS check where they're like, no, we have to get to it now. So to tie all that back, what we're really trying to push these guys on is allow people to put multiple serial numbers on the same Form 4 application. Stop splitting it up, because if one of those passes, then it should approve all of the other ones, because it's, again, the same exact check.
Yeah.
And if one of them gets delayed or denied, have one examiner tie up their resources trying to troubleshoot that instead of multiples.
Oh, without a doubt. You've got, if you're turning in a paper form these days, I think that's a really silly way to do it. But there are some people who want that. Okay, fine. But if you're turning in any kind of electronic submission, the people who, the end user has a username and a PIN and a password, that kind of stuff. It would make sense to me that if these people were cleared for any kind of suppressor, it doesn't matter. If any kind of NFA thing comes back with a plus, with a thumbs up, then every username application, the system should automatically go green.
Yep.
Why would you need to do this another time, and waste taxpayers' money? You already found out this guy's good to go. So if he bought a SBR from me here, 5 months later, a can there, 3 months after that, a short barrel shotgun over there. The minute the first one becomes live, anything that's in the system ought to immediately go green, and he get his tax stamp in seconds. That's the way that ought to work, and there's no reason that it can't.
100%. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They have taken some steps to do just that. It's just not perfect, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, let's remember it is 2025. This is something that we should easily be able to do. But it is what it is, right?
All right.
It gives us something to work towards, and that's what we've been pushing on for quite some time.
Fantastic. What else do we need here? What do you need from us, and what do people need to know?
Oh man, there's so much. I think that we've got a tremendous opportunity with the Trump administration to hopefully pick up some really large gains. Obviously, we love the executive order that came out about a month ago at the time of filming, so early mid-February. We're expecting hopefully some good stuff to come out of the Department of Justice in response to that executive order. We will find out with everybody else what exactly that looks like. But the president has a unique opportunity to really change the game. And we really hope that the administration will take that opportunity, seize it, and run with it. And to that end, I think that, for the folks in the public out there, letting the administration know, hey, this is something that we support, thank you for having our back. It really goes a long way, especially to a president like Trump. He's a man of the people. He will respond better to that, I think, more than any executive that I'm aware of, at least in my lifetime.
Fantastic. All right. Knox Williams from the American Suppressor Association. Find them all over social media and certainly at americansuppressораssociation.com. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all of us here at IFC and certainly Iowa for making all the effort to help us pull suppressors off the offensive weapons list in Iowa. With no small irony, there's still items on there that we can't seem to get off there today. And I would very much like to see evaporate, let me tell you. But again, thank you for all your help. Thank you for your willingness to come on the show today. Anything before we go?
Oh, man. Hey, I just appreciate it. And really, truly, it was a privilege and a pleasure to be able to work with y'all. I miss coming out to Des Moines. I really loved it out there. But maybe we can put together a shoot for some of the Iowa delegation.
If that's what we need to do and you want to come out or that's something we need to organize, by all means, you're welcome. We'll put you up. You can stay at my house. I'm sorry you're going to have to fight for the bathroom with my daughter, but hey, dude, to the victor goes the spoils. We'll see.
There you go.